Good morning. Today's Bible reading will be from John 13, verses 21 to 38. After he had said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, "Very truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me." His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which one of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him.
Wrong thing.
What?
It's just wrong.
No.
Okay. Sorry.
Reclining next to him, Simon Peter motions to this disciple and said, "Ask him which one he means." Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Then, dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, "What are you about to do? Do quickly." But no one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas had charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the festival or give something to the poor. As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out, and it was night.
When he was gone, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I had told the Jews, so I tell you now. Where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Simon Peter asked him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "Where I am going you cannot follow now, but you will follow later." Peter asked the Lord, "Why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Then Jesus answered, "Will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times."
Thank you. Nicely done. And this will give your dad an opportunity to talk to you about different versions and different translations. But thank you for reading that. And let me invite you to turn with me to John chapter 13. We last found Jesus in John 13 sitting with the disciples around the table. Jesus had just washed their feet before they were going to sit down and celebrate Passover. He had already made allusion at that point that someone was going to betray him. And as we pick up in verse 21, I just kind of want to set the stage for you that this comes even more so now to the forefront, certainly of Jesus' mind, of his heart. John tells us Jesus was deeply troubled. He kind of blurts out, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." And that would kind of be an awkward moment around the holiday table, don't you think? I mean, that's what this is. They're going to celebrate Passover, and that's what Jesus says. You know, these guys, his friends, these are the people that Jesus has been doing life with for the last 3 years. They've been with Jesus. They've been following him, seeing him do things that demonstrate that God is on the move. His teaching, the things that he's doing, it's very clear. They are sure he is the Messiah. He is the King. But now, this talk of betrayal, there's this tension around the table and a sense of trouble in Jesus' soul. How do you respond to that comment? One of you is going to betray me. And they kind of look at each other, not quite sure what to make of it. They're all there with Jesus, the 12. In John's telling you the account, he especially zooms in on Peter, John, and Judas. That's a little corner of the table. John is the disciple that Jesus loved. Okay, most people understand he's also the one doing the writing of this gospel account. John is probably the youngest around the table. He's likely a cousin of Jesus on Mary's side. He's probably 20 years old. Someone who has looked up to Jesus his entire life. I don't know if you have cousins in your family like that, where you've been around and you've always sort of looked up to an older cousin. That was John's experience with Jesus. Except they've had this friendship, this discipleship friendship, this closeness that goes longer than the 3 years that the rest of the guys had been following Jesus. So I just want you to understand the special relationship that Jesus had with John. And that night, John is close to Jesus, not just relationally, but also in proximity. He is sitting right next to him, okay? And after Jesus made this comment, Peter kind of nods John's way. What's Jesus talking about? He kind of nudges John, maybe with a gesture. But John gets the message that Peter wants him to see what's Jesus talking about. And so John's able to just sort of lean over. Say, Lord, who is it? Who are you talking about? What are you talking about? Now, I think it's easy to, as we try to create a picture in our mind, to sort of borrow from Da Vinci's Last Supper, okay? You can kind of picture the picture of the guys sitting, I don't know that they went in and asked for a table for 26 and only sat on one side. We are familiar with this. This is famous. This is iconic, so to speak. It's also all wrong. The tables back then didn't look like that. That's a table from the Middle Ages. That's a rendering. That's an interpretation. Tables in the first century were big U-shaped tables, low to the ground, a lot more like you go into a sushi joint and you have the opportunity to have your legs fall asleep by sitting on the low. I opt for chairs. But you can sit low and have that. That's a little bit more of the authentic experience, right? In the first century, what they would do is tables were low to the ground. They were U-shaped so that the servants could come in and drop the food, and then everyone would sit on the ground, and people would recline on couches with their feet, whether they were dirty or clean, pointing away from the table. And you may not have sat at a table like that, but you've sat at tables that are busy. You've sat at tables with a dozen people. How about like at a wedding? You sit at a table with like 8 people, and the speaker seems to be right here. And the music is going such that you can't understand what's going on across the table. You've been in busy sorts of contexts. Conversations sprout up, but you're not able to necessarily follow everything. So you got your people nearby you can kind of talk to if you want to lean over and say, can you believe they're playing the music that loud? Or whatever. And so when Jesus says to John, it's the one I'm going to give the bread that I dip into the bowl, this is not a table-sized announcement. He's responding to John. They have their own little sidebar conversation back and forth. It's in hushed tones. And he dipped the bread and he handed it to Judas. Now, probably a bit of color to give you here, because most of us wouldn't scoop food and hand it to someone. You'd have to be kind of close to someone to scoop food and say, here. If you hang out with me, I could very well say, you got to try the baba ganoush. I've done that with people. You got to try this. But then, dipping bread into the dish and passing it, that was a special sign of friendship. That was Jesus uses it to reveal the mystery to John as to what he's talking about. But it wasn't like an arbitrary code, like who's, like steal second. It's not an arbitrary code. Doing that shows Jesus was close to Judas. That this was a typical thing to do among friends. You ever share bites of food from an entree? I mean, I like to share. We like to share in our family. If you hang out with our family, you'll see us do that all the time. And you might even get an opportunity to eat something really, really, really great off one of our plates. But I don't just do that with anyone. It's kind of a sign of closeness. It's a measure of closeness. Jesus dipping the bread in the dish and handing it to Judas was also a sign that Judas was about to betray a close friend. That's what was going on. Judas was about to betray a close friend. It's a betrayal that comes from a place of intimacy between two people with shared trust. And that's part of why Jesus is so troubled. It speaks to why Jesus is so troubled. John tells us in verse 27 that when Judas had eaten the bread, it said Satan entered into him. That doesn't sound good, but it's probably not like the picture of when the demons go into the pigs or whatever, and they go rushing down the hill and jump off the cliff or whatever it was. But Judas had been drawn in by and willingly embraced the forces of darkness. The word Satan means accuser. The one who brings a charge against someone else. That's what Judas was about to do in giving Jesus up, to turn him over. John wants us to know that what's going on in this scene involves more than the fact that temple guards are going to arrest Jesus, that Roman soldiers are going to get involved. It's bigger than religious leaders. It's bigger than politics. It is all those things are going to happen, but more. It's more than that. It's all those things, including all the powers of darkness in the unseen realm. Darkness is coming up against the light of the world in an epic confrontation. That's what's going on. And so Jesus tells Judas, just hurry and get it over with. What you do quickly. And you can imagine that moment around the table between Jesus and Judas, and now John's got his eyes wide open. No one else around the table understands the significance of what's going on. They all kind of figured Judas was going to go settle the bill, since he's the one that had the money. But John tells us Judas left at once, going out into the night. It's like he goes out into the darkness. And there's some drama there, and I want to invite you to feel it. Great love, great betrayal. Jesus is now with his own, alone with his own, his guys. He only has a few more hours with them. Time is about to collapse around them, and it's like a fuse has been lit. It's like a fuse has been lit, and limited time remains. The trap, the arrest, the trial, the crucifixion, it's all coming. As Judas left, the tone changed. The volumes changed. It's not about sidebar chats. It's Jesus now has a lot to say, and he wants to speak freely. And it's unlike when Judas was there. This is kind of where the farewell discourse really starts. Famous last words. This is about how he's going away and that they can't follow him just yet. But he has a mission for them. There's some things he wants them to remember in his absence. He's got tasks for them. It's not a halftime huddle. It's not a rah-rah speech. It's a time of closeness with his friends, with his followers, with his guys. It's deep and it's intimate. Intimate. Sometimes that word gets used as a synonym for sex. But I'm talking about intimacy, of the closeness, close personal relationship with friends that you'd give anything for, people that you'd do anything, you'd give anything for. That's the vibe in these verses. That's the vibe in these chapters. Deep theological insights. Jesus is revealing God's heart. His heart. A sense of who God is and their relationship. The relationship God wants with us, with all who are numbered among his followers. That's the kind of stuff he wants to talk about. And so, as he turns up the volume and he speaks to the whole table, he's like, now is the time. The time has come. They've been anxiously awaiting the glory of this moment, okay? They were used to him using this expression about himself when he calls himself the Son of Man, okay? He's talking about himself. The time has come for the Son of Man to enter into his glory. He said that, he would be lifted up, and, that can mean exalted. There's a way that Jesus has a double meaning because it's also lifted up on the cross. Jesus doesn't see those as separate, kind of sees them as intertwined. But he also here talks about God being glorified. He talks here you talk about intertwined. He intertwines this idea of God being glorified because of the Son of Man. Jesus said, and since God receives glory because of the Son, he will give his own glory to the Son, and he will do so at once. It's like the glory of the Son and the glory of the Father through the Son blend into this one reality, one moment, and the fuse that Judas lit burns. And it's all about to unfold. It's all about to blow. The two go together, this glory. The two go together, the glory of the Son of Man and the glory of God. The two go together like the prophecy in Daniel 7. Someone like a Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. He's led into the throne room of the Ancient of Days. You have the Son of Man. The Son of Man is an expression just basically for someone like anybody else, just a regular guy. Someone like us, human, brought into the presence of God Almighty. The Son of Man approaches and gains access. And Daniel's vision goes on. He says he was given authority, honor, and sovereignty over all the nations of the world so that people of every race and nation and language would obey him. His rule is eternal. It will never end. His kingdom will never be destroyed. This is pretty glorious language. Given authority by the eternal one, by God himself, in a moment of God's glory conferred, shared, revealed, and reigning. It overcomes the powers that have rebelled and resisted and abused his people. And it throws the door open for people from all over to come and to bask in the glory of the Messiah. That's what's about to happen. That's the glory that Jesus is talking about. The fulfillment of the prophecy in Daniel, yes, but more than that, it's like the fulfillment of history. It's the center of everything. It's God's purpose and plan. And that's what happens at the cross. That's where Jesus is revealed to be king, where he shows us the sacrificial love of God, the costly, precious love. When he shows us love that suffers. All the glory of Daniel 7:13 is linked to the Son who suffers. It's not an escape from suffering. That's when we suffer, it's very difficult to just sit there. If there's an opportunity for escape, we want to dive on it. We want to run that way. Jesus didn't do that. But he experiences suffering deeply and completely. Now, when we think of glory, we kind of think of the mighty hero who stands up and squashes enemies, right? Smashes them, vanquishes them. Like Thor bringing down his hammer, right? Wham! But really, Jesus shows us God. He's revealed to be God's Son at the cross. Now, everything's accelerating, everything's expanding, and it's like Jesus is right there at the threshold of this glory, and he knows it's going to be a shock to his friends sitting there at the table. He says, I'm only going to be with you a little while longer. You'll search for me, but you can't come where I'm going. And it's almost like he's a little overwhelmed that he's going to leave them behind. So much he'd like to say and do, so much he'd like them to understand more, to spend time with them, to help them. Ultimately, Jesus has to let go. He needs to get ready for them to relate to him in a new way through his Spirit. And so here in verse 34, he says something that we've heard before. And I want us to hear it in a fresh way to the extent we can. Verse 34, Jesus says, I'm going to give you a new commandment. A new commandment. Love one another. And I don't know, it's interesting. I've been doing my reading through the Pentateuch and now into the historical books. There's a lot of times you hear God say, love each other. In Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, it comes up a lot. But Jesus' command to love each other is new in terms of its depth, in terms of its type. He says, love each other. Let's keep going. He says, love each other just as I have loved you. You should love each other. And that's huge, right? What has Jesus not done for them? What has Jesus not done for them? For us. He's humbled himself. He's washed their feet. He's told them to wash each other's feet. But he's right at the precipice of laying down his life, of going to the cross for them. And they don't see it at the moment, but it's all going to unfold before their eyes like in the next 24 hours. He's going to love them to the end. And like the foot washing, they're going to look back. They're going to look back at the foot washing. They're going to look back at that night. They're going to look back at his whole life. They're going to look back his whole way of being and find in it an example, a cross-shaped pattern. What does love look like? Love is not a feeling. I Googled this because I wanted an image of some sort to pop up. And it's just sort of ooey-gooey. And it's like, that's not what Jesus is talking about. It's bigger than sentimentality. I mean, listen. There's a place for sentimentality. There's a place for affection. There's a place for all that. But ultimately, when Jesus says love each other, he's not saying get ooey-gooey. It's not about our feelings. Sometimes I'll do stuff that ticks you off. Maybe I mean it. Maybe I don't. That's kind of the way life is, right? But Jesus says, love one another. Love shows up. Love costs. Love serves. Love does. Okay. Let me quote Tertullian. He was a 2nd century church leader. Tertullian talked about the pagan people in the surrounding community and the things that they used to say about the church. You want to know what they used to say? They used to say, look how these Christians love each other. He said they're even ready to die for each other. And that's a powerful message to the world around us, to the world that's watching. What we say, what we do, and how the two correlate. It's not always been a good scene, though, because since the 2nd century, there's a way Christians have turned the gospel into a weapon. We war against culture. We fight among ourselves to the point where there have been periods where Christians have burned each other at the stake. Now we tend to just burn them on social media or whatever. We define love in terms of who agrees with us, in terms of those who agree with us, and that those are our people. But the way Jesus talks about love, love is about the other person. And they're worthy of love not because they agree with us, and not because they reflect the views we have, but because Jesus said, love each other. Okay? Some people are never closer than when they have a common enemy to oppose. Have you noticed that? That's not what Jesus was saying. That is not his commandment. Our community in the church, let me sketch this out here, and I want you to pay attention to the categories. Our community in the church should not be characterized by exclusiveness. Our community should be inclusive. And that means welcoming people regardless of background, age, gender, race, social status, moral history. It's going to get controversial. Moral history, sexual identity, intelligence, religious background, or lack thereof. As it relates to loving, he asks us to let go of our interests, to let go of our hobbies, to let go of our politics. And who is welcome in the Church of Jesus Christ? Whosoever. Whosoever may come is welcome. Jesus loved so inclusively, so indiscriminately, so without bounds, it was almost reckless. And when the church loves this way, do you know what the world will say? They've been with Jesus. This is a different kind of place. This is different from the rest. And it's interesting how Peter responds to this command, because he's sort of stuck on what Jesus said about only being there a little while longer. And he's like, Lord, where are you going? I will follow you. There's no way are you going that I'm not going to be right on your heels. I want to follow you. I'm ready to die for you. And we get that because Peter is on board. He feels it. But look at verse 38. Jesus is like, you're going to die for me? You're going to die for me. Peter has no clue of what's being asked of Jesus and what Jesus is prepared to do. And he doesn't know how he's going to handle the pressure when it comes. But Jesus loves Peter even in his response. And he warns him and he says, Peter, I hate to say it, but what you're about to do is different than what you're saying. Because before morning, you're going to deny you even know me. You're going to deny it 3 times that you even know me. And it's true what Jesus told him, not just about the denial, but when he told Peter, you can't come with me now, but you can come with me later. That doesn't have to do with the rapture. That doesn't have to do with the second coming. That doesn't have to do with, do you know what it has to do with? Laying down his life. Peter had that opportunity later to lay down his life, to bear witness to his relationship with Jesus, to follow Jesus for decades. Okay? He did that faithfully, followed Jesus for decades, and then he laid down his life. We have moments when we're asked to identify with Christ, to show our loyalty, our connection with him. Sometimes we fail. Okay? Sometimes we don't come through the way we expect, the way we want. Peter's failure brought bitter tears. It was hard for him to face. How did Jesus respond? If we can spoiler. How did Jesus respond? He loved him still. He loved him still. It wasn't Peter's, it wasn't Peter dying for his allegiance to Jesus that made him part of the group. It's that Jesus died. And he knew that he was sitting, as he was sitting there with his friends, about you have Judas and Judas' whole slow burn desire to turn him in. You have John with this long-standing bond of closeness. You have Peter's zeal and his desire, his inability to translate that into action and into loyal action. But Jesus was sitting there at the table knowing Peter's denial was coming, knowing all of this. And so we have at this table love and betrayal, tall talk and denial, weakness. You have glory and suffering. And somehow they go together uncomfortably, but they go together. And it's around that table, the tensions around that table, where Jesus shared the meal, where he instituted the bread and the cup, where he marked officially, this is the beginning of the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. It's at that same meal that we're going to celebrate in just a moment. And we come with our zeal, and we come with our baggage, and we come with our shortcomings, and we come with our faith, and we come with our doubt. How does Jesus welcome us? With open arms. He says, come. There's grace enough for you. There's grace enough for you. Come, receive, eat, drink. So we have a closing song. I'm going to invite the band up, and let's sing before we come to the table, and just use this as a